They said I was being dramatic. They said I should be grateful. They said empty nest is supposed to be freedom. But nobody tells you what it feels like when your own son forgets your birthday. When his girlfriend tells you to stop calling so much. When you realize you've become the burden you swore you'd never be. My name is Margaret. I'm 67. And this is the story of how I disappeared from my own life, and what happened when I finally decided to come back. It started on my birthday. My 67th birthday. I'd been planning it for weeks. Nothing fancy, just dinner with my son Daniel. He lives in London now, works in finance, always busy. But he promised he'd come home to Edinburgh. He promised. I cleaned the house until it sparkled. I bought his favorite wine. I made reservations at the restaurant where we used to celebrate every birthday when his father was alive. The same corner table. The same menu. Keeping traditions alive, even when Thomas had been gone for 9 years. The call came at 4 in the afternoon. "Mum, I'm so sorry." Daniel's voice was strained. "Something came up at work. I can't make it tonight." My heart sank, but I forced my voice to stay light. "Oh. That's fine, love. We can reschedule. Actually, about that." He paused. I heard a woman's voice in the background. "Sarah thinks, we think it might be better if I come less often. You know, to help you become more independent. It's healthier that way." Sarah. His girlfriend of 8 months. The one I'd met exactly twice. "Independent," I repeated slowly. "Yeah, Mum. You've been calling quite a bit lately, and Sarah noticed you seem, well, a bit lonely. Maybe too dependent on me for company. It's not healthy at your age. You should have your own friends, your own life." Something cold settled in my chest. "I see. You're not upset, are you? It's just, boundaries are important. Sarah's really good at this stuff. She's read books about it." I looked around my immaculate house. The dinner table set for 2. The cake I'd baked sitting on the counter. The new dress I'd bought, hanging on the door, still with tags on. "No, Daniel. I'm not upset. You're absolutely right. I should have my own life." "Great. Okay, I've got to run. Sarah's waiting." "Happy birthday, Mum." He hung up. I sat there, phone in my hand, in my empty house, on my 67th birthday. And something inside me just broke. Or maybe it woke up. I'm still not sure which. I didn't cry. Instead, I took off my new dress. I put on my comfortable clothes. I took that fancy cake, and I walked to the nearest park. I sat on a bench and ate birthday cake with a plastic fork, alone, watching strangers live their lives. A woman sat down next to me. She was about my age, with paint stains on her jacket. "Birthday cake?" she asked, eyeing my plate. "How did you know?" She pointed at the candles still stuck in the slice. I'd forgotten to take them out. I laughed. It sounded strange, like I'd forgotten how. "Want some?" I offered. "I've got a whole cake at home and no one to share it with." "Been there," she said. "I'm Anne. And I'd love some cake." We talked for hours. Anne's husband had died 3 years ago. Her daughters lived abroad. She'd spent the last year feeling like a ghost in her own life, she said. Invisible. Unnecessary. A burden that everyone was too polite to mention. "So what did you do?" I asked. She smiled. "I got angry. And then I got even." Even with who? With the version of myself that forgot she mattered. And became my friend. My first real friend in decades. Every Wednesday, we'd meet. She taught me to paint. Not because I was good at it, but because it was mine. Something no one could take away or tell me I was doing wrong. Months passed. I stopped calling Daniel every week. I stopped making excuses for him. I started painting. I joined Anne's art class. I even sold a painting, small piece, to a local cafe. They paid me £80. £80 for something I created. I felt alive for the first time in years. Then December came. Christmas was approaching. I didn't decorate. I didn't bake. I didn't prepare a room for Daniel, because he hadn't called in 2 months. 3 days before Christmas, my phone rang. Mum? Daniel's voice sounded off. Stressed. Daniel. Hello. Are you okay? You sound different. I'm fine. How are you? Listen, about Christmas. Sarah and I had a fight. She left. Went to her parents. And I thought, maybe I could come home? If you're not busy? Something in his voice. He expected me to say yes immediately. To drop everything. To welcome him with open arms like I always did. Actually, Daniel, I am busy. Silence. Busy? He sounded genuinely confused. Yes. I have plans with friends. Anne and I are going to an art exhibition on Christmas Eve, and on Christmas Day, we're having dinner with her daughters who are visiting from Canada. But, Mum, it's Christmas. We always spend Christmas together. No, Daniel. You always had the option to spend Christmas with me. There's a difference. Are you angry about my birthday? Because I explained that. Sarah thought. This isn't about anger, I said quietly. This is about me having a life. Like you and Sarah suggested. Remember? Independence? Boundaries? That's not, I didn't mean you should just, I'm your son. Yes. You are. And I love you. But I'm not going to sit in this house waiting for you to remember I exist. Not anymore. So that's it? You're just going to abandon me for some art class friends? The irony would have been funny if it didn't hurt so much. I'm not abandoning you, Daniel. I'm finally not abandoning myself. There's a difference. He hung up. I expected to feel guilty. I expected to cry. Instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. Christmas came. Anne and I went to the exhibition. Her daughters were lovely, warm women who actually listened when their mother spoke. Who asked her opinion. Who valued her presence. On Boxing Day, my doorbell rang. Daniel stood there. His eyes were red. He looked smaller somehow, deflated. Can I come in? I stepped aside. He walked to the living room and stopped. My paintings were everywhere. On walls. On easels. The room had transformed from a museum of the past into something alive. When did you do all this? He asked. Over the last few months. While I was learning to be independent. He turned to me. I messed up, didn't I? Yes. He flinched. I'd never been that direct before. Sarah and I broke up. For good this time. And I realized, sitting alone in my flat on Christmas, that I don't actually have anyone. No real friends. Just work colleagues. And a mother I took for granted because I knew she'd always be there. Daniel. No, let me finish. You were always there. Every call. Every visit. You dropped everything. And I thought that meant you had nothing else. That you were, I don't know, empty without me. But you weren't empty. I just never looked properly. He picked up one of my paintings. A garden scene. Colors I never knew I could create. This is beautiful, Mum. You're talented. I never knew. You never asked. The truth of it hung in the air between us. I'd like to get to know you, he said quietly. Not just my mum. But you. Margaret. The person who paints and has friends and goes to exhibitions. If you'll let me. I looked at my son. This man I'd raised. This person I'd loved so much I'd forgotten to save any love for myself. I'd like that, I said. But Daniel, I need you to understand something. I'm not going back to being invisible. I'm not going back to waiting by the phone. I have a life now. You're welcome in it. But you're not the center of it anymore. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. I understand. And I'm sorry, Mum. I'm so sorry. We talked for hours. Really talked. For the first time in years, maybe ever. He told me about his loneliness in London. His failed relationship. His realization that success meant nothing if you had no one to share it with. I told him about my painting. About Anne. About learning to see myself again. When he left the next day, he hugged me differently. Like he was holding a person, not just a role. I'll call you next week, he said. I'd like that. But Daniel? If you can't, that's okay too. I'll still be here. But I'll also be living my life. He smiled. A real smile. I'm glad, Mum. You deserve to. 6 months later, Daniel visits once a month. Real visits. Where he asks questions and listens to answers. Where he brings groceries and helps with the garden and sits while I paint. Sarah called once to apologize. I thanked her. If she hadn't drawn those boundaries, I might never have drawn my own. And I still meet every Wednesday. We're planning a small exhibition in the fall. Local artists over 60. We're calling it Second Acts. I'm 68 now. My hair is completely gray. My hands shake sometimes when I paint. My house is full of color instead of memories. And I'm visible again. Not because someone finally chose to see me. But because I chose to see myself. They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. They say you can't start over at 67. They say once you're invisible, you stay invisible. They were wrong. I stopped making soup every Sunday. I stopped waiting for phone calls. I stopped shrinking myself to fit into someone else's expectations. And I started living. Not the life I thought I should have. Not the life others wanted for me. Just my life. Messy and colorful and mine. If you're reading this and you feel invisible, if you're waiting for someone to make you matter, let me tell you something I wish someone had told me years ago. You already matter. You always did. You just forgot to look.